Hey, this is Tyrell Tachibana.
This is Micah McKinnon.
Drew Demechko.
And this is Omi Naruzi, and we are Team SideScrollers. And this is our proposal for our side-scrolling 2D game for Android, simply named SideScroller. The goal of this project is to provide a fun and reasonably complex game for the Android device, with all the normal features expected from a mobile game to keep you occupied for hours on end. We will dive deeper into these topics throughout the rest of the video.
The game's initial screen will be a designed logo with buttons. The buttons will include one for starting the game, one for checking previous scores, and another for exiting the game. This screen will also be accessible from inside the game by pressing the back button on the device. The start button, however, will be replaced with a pause button in this scenario.
The player will have several abilities. Firstly, he will have the ability to jump either left or right across the screen on a solid plane. He will also have the ability to jump, which can be used for either movement or attack, depending on the enemy type. When he reaches the furthest side of the screen, the background and other objects will move in a way that signifies traversal across the plane.
The player will have the ability to harm enemies by attacking them through various means. If the enemy's top is reachable and it's not impervious, the player can jump on the enemy to harm it. If the enemy is reachable, the player could also harm it with a melee attack. Lastly, the player can harm any enemy with the use of projectiles, of which he has a finite amount within a given duration.
The enemies of the game will mostly be distinguished between ground enemies, flying enemies, and boss enemies. Ground enemies traverse the screen mindlessly, trying to collide with the player. There will be several subtypes of ground enemy. Some ground enemies will have special defenses, while others will have special attacks.
Flying enemies, as the name suggests, will fly across the screen while attempting to harm the player by firing projectiles in their direction. Some projectiles will reduce health, while others will cause various status effects.
Boss enemies will emerge after the player has eliminated a set amount of ground and flying enemies. These enemies will vary in attack types and appearance, but will share the characteristics of being large and powerful, with strong attacks and more health. These enemies will be worth a much larger amount of points.
Along with the negative status effects that can be inflicted on the player, there are also positive status effects for the player in the form of power-ups. These can be attained randomly throughout the game as objects that travel across the ground. Positive effects will include brief invulnerability and multiple projectiles.
Finally, we will have a scoreboard to log a player's given name and score along with others who have played on the device. This will be accessible through the main menu and the pause menu as well. In sum, the game should mirror all the normal components of a game found in production, but with a smaller scope due to time and resource constraints. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to releasing this game to the public.